You're listening to Neurodivergent Mates. Hello and welcome to another episode of Neurodivergent Mates. I'm your host, Will Wheeler, joined with my... I forgot to turn the repeat off. Yeah. Oh, well, anyway, you're listening to Neurodivergent Mates. I'm your host, Will Wheeler, joined with my main man, Photon John. Kev, what's going on, brother?
I had an excellent day today. I woke up, body woke me up at 6:30, and I was just immediately in hyper-focus mode.
Really?
I made a list this afternoon of all the things I got done. I'm like, how did I even find time in a day with time?
Oh, you just froze up there, Kev. Oh, no, you're there. You're back. Yes, sweet. Yep. Oh, good, man. That's good. That's good. It's good when you can just wake up and be ready to rock and roll, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me this morning, right, I slept in. You know, because it's a public holiday here in Sydney. So I was like, oh, cool. I was able to sleep in. But those days when you can sleep in, but you don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to sleep in tomorrow, and then it doesn't happen. So I was like, I slept in. So I was like, I feel really good. But I know tonight I'm probably not going to be able to get to sleep until like really late, and then try to wake up early tomorrow and be like, oh man, I got no sleep. But anyway, we should really get stuck into this today. We've got a really good topic that we're talking about and a really cool guest coming on. So today what we're going to be talking about is substance use in aged care with special guest Erin Flint. Erin, how are you today?
I'm really good. I'm wishing I had some of John's hyper-focus, though. So
hyper-focus.
I'd have to grab some of that.
Yeah, not a problem. But look, thank you so much for coming on. I think when Photon John came to me with this topic and said, look, man, I know this person who's doing all this research and that into this topic, I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. So, thank you so much for coming on. We're definitely really keen to talk more about it. But before we do, what we might do a bit of a shout out to anyone who's listening. So if you haven't already done so, please subscribe, like, and follow to all of our social media pages. We're available on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn. We're also available on all platforms where you listen to your podcast. Also, too, please remember to subscribe, rate us, do everything to help with the algorithm so more people can listen to us and check out all the cool people who are coming onto our podcast. Photon John, you like that one today, brother?
Yeah. I'll double down on that algorithm stuff at the moment. I know there's some seismic shifts going on with most social media, including YouTube. So it really does help when people actually interact with the video rather than just watch it. But obviously, thank you for watching.
Yeah, totally. Hey, also too, and before I forget this, Photon John, it's our 50th episode, everyone.
Awesome.
It's our 50th episode. Every time.
50.
Yeah. I thought it was only 49 last week, but because we had to remove one for some reason, it was showing that. Yeah. So we're actually this is our 50th episode. So
wow.
Congratulations, Photon John. Erin, congratulations for being our 50th person on.
I wish I did have a wine with me right now.
We probably should
celebrate.
We probably should have.
Little party hat.
I wish I could have, if anyone from StreamYard who we do all this through is listening right now, I wish we could have buttons that you could press that shoot off things across the stage or make noises or something like that. But also too, for all of our listeners as well, we've got our sponsor, Neurodiversity Academy. So if you want to check out more of what's going on with the podcast or what we're doing with Neurodiversity Academy, please check us out at neurodiversityacademy.com. Also, too, just a little bit of a shout out before we get started. Warning, some discussions may be triggering. If you need help, please reach out to a loved one or call emergency services. we are not doctors. This is a space for sharing experiences and strategies. Actually, it must have cut off. I probably needed to add a little bit more there, but you get what I'm saying there. Also, to any listeners we have, please ask any questions through the comments there while we're on the live platform. Nice, man. That was a lot. That was a lot to get through there, right, man? But yeah, I did all right. Hey, all right, cool. But we better get on to the main person, Erin. So thank you so much for coming on. But please share with us a little bit about yourself. We'd love to hear about it.
So firstly, it's such an honor to be here. As I was saying before, I feel like a little fish in a big pond. And when I was asked to do this, I was like, me? Like who? This girl? And so I really am so honored to be here. About myself, I'm 35. I am a cat mum to a 16-year-old boy. Very spoiled 16-year-old cat boy. I study social work, so I'm in my final year of a Bachelor of Social Work, and I'm doing my honours, which is what this project is, which is why it feels so weird because it's such a little project, but it's so big to me.
And you know what? And I do want to say a few things right now. You said I was surprised when you asked me to come onto the podcast, and I think the best thing about getting people like yourself is that you're real. This is the type of people we want on. Yeah, exactly. You're real. You live this, you live and breathe it. And I think that's what makes a lot of our guests so awesome.
For sure.
So definitely having real people on and sharing those experiences. Plus, also too, with the work you're doing there and all the research work, this is important work. So, being able for our listeners to be able to hear what you're doing, from your perspective, especially based on the research, that's key.
For sure.
So no, thank you so much. But in saying that, tell us a little bit about your research. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, okay. So I'll kind of take you back. I guess I like to tell people why I'm doing this. And I started working in aged care 2006, I think it was, and I spent 17 years in that field. So I think that now that I really reflected on it today, and I think that my neurodivergence was kind of conducive to that field because I felt so safe going into a nursing home every day and being with a big group of people who were just awesome. And I used to I worked with dementia specifically for quite a long time. And the creativity that I had when it came to managing behaviors in dementia was unreal. And I never thought about it, but really I think my neurodivergence and my character really played into that because I have to tell you this story. I tell everyone this story, but I had a guy who he would not go to sleep until he'd spoken to his daughter on the phone. And he was so Scottish, like really, really Scottish. And this daughter didn't really want a bar of him. She was like, nah, call someone else. So every night I would run to another cottage, get on the phone and pretend to be his daughter in the worst Scottish accent you've ever heard in your life. But if I didn't do that, he wouldn't go to sleep and he'd be dosed up on sleeping pills and all sorts. So I don't know, it was a cute little reflection today. I thought, I was so creative with that stuff. Like so anyway, spent a long time in aged care, loved it. Couldn't get away from it, but I had kind of dreams to do more, and you can't really grow in aged care unless you take the nursing route, and I didn't want to, / I'd also had a bit of lived experience with substance use myself, and that made things difficult. Had some charges that were associated with that substance use from a long time ago. And it made it really difficult for me to kind of move forward in life and get what I wanted to get. So I eventually went into social work, which is super cool. It's definitely my zone. And through social work, I ended up doing my first placement last year at a harm reduction drug and alcohol facility. And so I didn't know that harm reduction existed, but it's more or less an alternative to sobriety models. And, you think about, there's someone that uses substances, what do they do if they want help? You go to rehab, or but I'd never heard of this harm reduction thing, where it's just kind of meeting people where they're at, not pushing abstinence down their throats, not, giving people clean equipment, being there to just listen. So that was just a dream. I spent a year with them. And during that time, the idea of doing my honours kind of came up. And I was like, no, I couldn't. I could never. I couldn't. I'm not that girl. But one of my incredible supervisors, I was on a meeting with her about something else, and she was asking me about myself, and I told her a bit about what I've just told you both. And she said, I really want to do a study on older people and substances. And my mind just went, like, what? Like, that's my two things. Like, that's my two passions combined into one. Like, I have to be a part of that. So, yeah, then the honours thing kind of came up, and she was doing a different project, but I put my name down for it.
You know what?
Sorry.
Yeah, you know what? It's so interesting when, you were saying that, and I'm assuming you had some problems with substances at one point. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting how sometimes we can have a problem with something, but we can then turn that problem into a positive, which we can then create the next chapter of our life. And it's sort of
100%.
like we can definitely, it's just interesting how it works. Sometimes these negative things that happen in our life, and not necessarily negative, but maybe at some point in time, maybe we did see it as a negative. Well, don't get me wrong. I used to have a bit of problems with substance back in the day. And it was interesting you were talking about it before, how you were dealing with certain people who, were struggling with, or using it or whatever, and you needed clean equipment and stuff like that. It can be very difficult at that point of time to just quit cold turkey, but sometimes
Definitely.
When you've got these great environments and other people around you who actually understand it or have been there, done that, can definitely, I suppose, inspire or help people to maybe want to change that, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
I think all three of us have had previous substance issues. I remember myself feeling a big sense of shame around it, and I knew that sort of everyone coming at you going, you need sobriety immediately, right now, go to rehab, kind of environment didn't help me at all. It made me, hide.
Well, do you know what?
Exactly.
Well, do you know what, right? Like, it's funny you say that, all this shame and that, but I think for me back in the day, I didn't see it as a problem. I didn't, I think when you think of maybe someone who has a problem with drugs or alcohol or whatever type of addiction they've got, it could be gambling, sex, whatever it is, right? It's you don't see it as a problem. It's hard to explain, but I suppose for myself, I always thought that someone with a problem is someone who's like a junkie, all that. But if you're doing stuff, if you're like I remember back in the day, like really craving to get home just to be able to smoke a bong or whatever like that, and I was just so angry if I couldn't get that type of stuff. But I didn't think, oh man, I've got a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But now, I don't need that. I don't crave that type of thing.
Yeah.
But it was so hard to see beyond that type of thing back in the day, if that makes sense. I think it was more once I had sort of gone, oh, I want to build a career, and to build my career, I need to distance myself from this. Then I saw how much of a problem it was, if that makes sense.
I think also like defining what a problem is for someone, I think that's a lot of the time that is the problem, is that like society is so quick to label what is and isn't a problem, and what defines, and there is a question coming up, I hope that you ask it because it's real good, but just what defines it being a problem, and like, does the person think it's that? Does society think it's that? Who's actually saying, no, this is a big problem? Like it's yeah.
It's interesting that you say that as well, because I speak to, and obviously with a lot of the work I'm doing in the neurodiversity space, I'm coming across a lot of people who struggle with, say, social anxiety or, lots of different things. Now, we're seeing that medical marijuana is becoming readily available, and it has so many great uses, right? And it's so interesting when I'm speaking to these people that it's like they're afraid to want to be open about it because they're afraid of the judgment and that about it, and once they sort of, I can pick up on it and I'm like, oh yeah, this and that, rah, 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 you can just see the whole, because they're like, you know what, it actually helps me. And I feel not ashamed, but I feel like, it helps me, and that's good, but it's hard to explain that to people sometimes.
I think that's tied to the stigma that's kind of put onto any substance use, drug use. And I think, and the illegality of it as well, like it just,
which came with decades of propaganda.
Exactly. But like, even though it's legal now to be prescribed it's still got that tarnished reputation of an illegal drug that we shouldn't be having, so it's societal's expectations and the way that people talk about things that go, oh no, like I brought it up to my mum the other week. She's got really bad tremors and she's taking all these medications, and I went, what about THC? Like, would you consider that? She's like, oh no, can't do that. And I was like,
yeah.
Okay.
It's actually, it was interesting. The person I was speaking to was telling me about tremors and stuff, and they were telling me that like they still got tremors and that, but it's calmed it so much more than what it used to, and if something can work for you, why not?
Definitely take the stigma out of it.
Totally. Anyway, we should move on. Great conversation, by the way. So how common is substance use in aged care?
Yeah, so I'll preface this with two things. The first one is that I only did a very small study for my research project. So hard to say, but also the data that's out there. So the data that I kind of drew on in my literature review, it's all government data. So what we found was that ages in the age cohort of 50s, 60s, and 70s, they're most likely to drink daily right now, which shocked me. But in this data, in this stuff, kind of, it comes up from census data. It comes from the National Drug Strategy household data. They're not capturing the people that are institutionalized, so in jail, in hospital, homeless. They're not capturing residential aged care. That, like, it's
just a small margin type of thing, and they're basing everything off that small margin type of thing.
Definitely. But if that's saying that there is an increase and we're not capturing all of these populations that do, it's pretty inherent that substance use goes hand in hand with some people that go to jail, with some people that are homeless. Like, how many more are out there, you know? Like, so it was same with illicit drugs. The ages 50 and over, it has significantly risen from 2001. The percentage of people in those age cohorts that are, and again, it's self-reported data. Do people feel comfortable?
Yes.
Is that generational at all? Is it, you know, like as the 60s generation ages and then the 70s generation?
That's what I've found in the research that I've kind of been looking at, is that it's the baby boomer generation. I mean, they're hitting that age now where they're starting to and I mean, I can't generalize, right? Like, I don't want to generalize and say, all the baby boomers.
Yeah.
But it's something that is more common in that generation, and nursing homes just aren't prepared for it. So that was kind of how I.
Do you know what? Yeah, you know what else was interesting? You said this just before, that like from ages 50 through to, I forget what age you said, but there can be big drinking problems and stuff like that, or excessive drinking. And, you know, I remember some of my parents' friends, when they got to retirement age and all of that, they had moved to certain places, and, you know, their marriages split up because, and I found it was more probably the husbands rather than the wives, that they were just drinking all the time. You know, did it come down to boredom, or I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, but you know what else I sort of found as well with a lot of these people? Oh, I'm going to retire. I've got nothing to do. What I might do for a hobby, I might start making my own beer, or I might, do you know what I mean?
Exactly. I think about my parents who have 3 to 4 gins every night. They love a gin. They just love it. And from what I've discovered, if they were to go into a home tomorrow, I wouldn't do that to them. But if they did, that depending on their resources, how much money they've put into the home, which home it is, what the management says, what the staff says, can they have it in their room? Can they have a bottle of Jack in their room? Probably not. It's probably going to be locked in the nurse's station and divvied out to you. So that's I'm getting ahead of myself.
No, but it's interesting because let's say for example, I'm a way older gentleman, and for a long time I've been drinking and all of that. Now I need to go into aged care because maybe I've got dementia or something like that. You know, it's almost like they're going to go into withdrawals. Do you know what I mean? 100%. It's like cold talking. It's cold 100%. Turkey, sorry. You know, so that can also be a problem within itself, because now or even say the nurses in there are fighting against someone who needs that, if that makes sense.
And they don't have the skills to be, first of all, telling someone just to stop to get into a facility. Which is what's happening. So people actually aren't getting in the door if they disclose that they use substances. It's too hard. They're a problem child, which is blowing my mind. There's a lot that I found that I'm like, I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but it's still like, oh, okay.
But and then it's probably being put back onto the families then, because it might be like, oh, we can't get dad into the aged care facility here, so he's going to have to go live with Kev, and then Kev's like, oh man, you know, I don't have the time to be looking after dad, and you know what I mean? Or
they end up homeless. Like, there's so many. It's wild. There's more research that needs to be done for sure, but the how common it is I think it's very underrepresented in the data, if that makes sense. So.
And also too, we'll go into this next question, because I think this will sort of talk a little bit about what I was sort of wanting to carry on with. But could you define use versus abuse? Sorry, could you define use of substances versus abuse, and what the focus on your research was? So obviously there's a difference. So use might be like, man, I need to use it because I need it to live. And then, abuse is obviously, using too much of that type of thing. But can you clarify that a little bit more?
Yeah, I love this question. So actually, so as I was saying before, what constitutes abuse? Like who makes the rule to say, oh no, this much a day is abuse, or one person's abuse, maybe the next guy's recreational limit. You know what I mean? So for me, I tackled this, well, in my personal life and in my professional life, I work from a real anti-oppressive framework, and that's the framework I used in my research. And when we're thinking anti-oppressively, we're really looking at power, first and foremost, and how power is played out from, the big people down to the little groups. And we're looking at language. And so for me, it's substance use for me. It's no matter what scale you're on, where you're at, it's substance use. Once you start, saying or dependency or misuse or I just find it really hard to gauge. I don't know. It's part of my framework was kind of really highlighting that. I'm flipping the notes over. Just really highlighted that the language that you use around substances can actually destigmatize this sort of stuff. I think the word abuse has so many negative connotations to it. And if you start saying, oh, that guy's a substance abuser, yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Right.
Well, I would say it would be not that it's, I don't know. It's hard because we're not in your shoes.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean? We're not.
Totally.
Maybe it could be if we let's look at neurodiversity, for example, and there's these different people can sometimes see it on different scales. You know what I mean? Maybe stuff like that, but I really couldn't answer the question properly because I definitely agree with what you say because, I think as well with, drug use and all of that type of stuff, it is a problem, it can be a problem at times. So, and sometimes, people are trying to, I think sometimes people say people who are struggling with some type of use of something and think that you can just stop like that, where there's so much involved with getting to that point of being able to stop. I think the biggest thing I think I found was let's say smoking weed. The thing was, I remember in the end, I didn't even really like the feeling I got from smoking weed, if that makes sense. Yeah. But I loved ripping bongs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was what addicted me type of thing. It was I craved that. And you can't just put nicotine in there or tobacco, and rip bongs. It's just not the same, if that makes sense, So that was sort of the addiction I had type of thing. Not really the drug itself. I wasn't really, in the end, I just hated it. But yeah, it was interesting how it sort of worked.
Yeah.
Well, I think, obviously there are drugs, personally being a former user of intravenous drugs, heroin and whatnot, where this doesn't apply, but I view it a lot of the time like poison. It's something that isn't poison can become poison depending on the dosage, the regularity or the amount. So I think I think use becomes a sliding scale that's much more useful than going, well, past this point, it's now abuse. And all the negative connotations that come along with throwing that word at someone when you might actually be wrong about where they're at on their own personal level. They might be entirely functional.
And I guess just saying substance use, it could that just covers that whole scale, you know, like it covers it without putting that negative word like, oh, you're misusing it or you're dependent on it. Substance use kind of encapsulates all of it, but it's just a less stigmatizing way of saying, you know, just referring to someone that uses substances. So,
and in saying that, I think it could over time, you know, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but using that term, maybe more people will come on board with that and understand it better. You know, some people just don't know what they. Sorry, I just wanted to share this because someone wrote through and they said, "This is fantastic, Erin. I'm so proud of you. Use, not abuse. Use, not abuse. I'm fully supportive of your anti-oppressive approach and anti-stigmatizing language around substance use. I'm so excited to read your completed research project." I'm assuming this is probably someone who knows you.
If I think I know who it is, but
because it's coming up LinkedIn users. So LinkedIn user, unless that's your real name, LinkedIn user, please feel free to comment back and we can give you a shout out if you like. But
thank you so much. Yeah, it is like it's a big thing. I think, as I said, working anti-oppressively, there's so many, like, I'm definitely not calling people out, but even the word junkie, I'm like, like it just, and again, like you said, it's if you're not in that context, it's really hard to know. But I used to call people junkies, and now I'm like, like it's just the words that we use give power to oppressing groups and another person.
So we got another person.
I know her.
There you go. Is it Maria James? Is that her name? Yeah. It's about choice and control and dignity of risk, self-determination, and being person-centered.
100%.
Awesome. Thank you so
100%.
much for the comment there.
Cool.
No, awesome chat. I'm really enjoying this because, you know, even when I hated back when I was younger, I did smoke a lot of weed and drink a lot, but I had dreadlocks all the way down to my ass and stuff like that. And people, well, they assumed correctly that they assumed I had a drug problem, and I did at that point. But I hate how that sometimes is referred to as that person's got a problem. Do you know what I mean? But definitely. Like we're seeing, and you know what as well, right? When I first went to Amsterdam, obviously weed and a lot of other stuff is legal there. Mm-hmm. And I think my whole perception of getting there, I was thinking, oh my God, what's this going to be like, But when it's in a controlled environment and it's legal and that, it's actually feels a lot cleaner, if that makes sense. Or I don't know. It was it was just normal. It was like the pubs that you go to and see, you go for a drink or whatever like that. And I thought, there's no problems at all. It's actually a lot better because there's actually rules in place and, people don't seem to abuse those rules. I guess it's also because it's legal there, right? Yeah. So, it's taking the criminality out of it. As we were saying before, it kind of, that helps to lift the stigma when you stop viewing everything as, it's so illegal and it's the worst thing you could ever do and you'll go to hell for that. As you said, maybe you felt the stigma lifted. It's so societal. And it's actually interesting because a lot of European countries, and I think and when I mean European countries, I'm talking countries I think Switzerland and the real Scandinavian ones. Yeah, the real rich countries. They're legalizing things like cocaine and heroin and all of this type of stuff. And they're actually finding that because they're legalizing it, they're obviously not legalizing for people to deal it illegally. It's still illegal to, for Kev to go out and, not saying Kev would, I'm just using you as an example, Kev, go and sell to some people down at the train station or something, right? But like it's actually being sold in, say, chemists and stuff like that. It's controlled, it's clean, people know what's in it. So a lot of like and also too, I think they're able to prescribe them the right amount. So deaths are obviously, there's not as many deaths and all of that. And, maybe they're finding as well that people are, getting off it because, lots of little stuff.
Not to mention the violent crime, drug-related crime rates went way down.
Yeah,
so it kind of put a lot of those people out of business. Yeah.
It's what you were just saying about, chemists being able to prescribe certain amounts. I'm going to do a little plug here if that's okay. But
sweet.
Queensland.
Are you a chemist?
No.
Okay.
No. There's the place I used to work, Queensland Injectors Health Network, down in Bowen Hills, are now doing drug testing. So you can actually bring in a sample of the bag that you've got for Friday night and get it tested and see what the strength is and stuff like that. So I think that's helping.
And I think we were seeing a few music festivals were starting to do that as well. And a lot, especially over in Europe, were doing stuff like that as well. And it was interesting to see what they were actually detecting. But, if it's saving lives, because this is the thing that people don't realize, right, is that, okay, you could take something off someone, but they can easily go get that somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? So if we're going to play that game, why don't we have things in place?
Well, it's giving people choice too, I think. Like get it checked, find out what's in it. Do you want to take it, or what do you want to do with it? Like, do you want to take it back to your dealer and punch him because it's not what he said it was? I don't know, but
maybe
it's really good. It's giving choice. It's giving safety.
Yeah, and I think I talked earlier about sort of feeling shame and stuff when I was younger, and it's we forget that drug use goes back pretty much to the dawn of humanity. If prohibition was going to work, I think maybe somewhere in the first 1,000 years, maybe it might have worked.
Totally.
I think we have to face the reality. People, this is going to happen.
We need new approaches.
And harm reduction is really the best approach, I think.
Totally.
Totally.
But the focus on the research, I just realized I totally missed that. But I had to narrow it down to just illicit drugs and alcohol. I had to take out smoking. I mean, substance use would encompass like alcohol, all the illicit drugs, cocaine.
What about vaping?
Steroid use. So it was a whole big thing, and I'm doing a little honours project. I say little, but it's going to be about 20,000 words, and I want to cry because it's still not finished, but that's okay. I just had to.
Have you heard of ChatGPT?
I would never. It freaks me out.
I know what you mean. Totally.
So it was, and because it's just a little project, I was interviewing staff in residential aged care facilities to see
cool.
What the current climate is. So
that's heaps cool. So moving on from that, what are the more common substances that older adults tend to use? So we sort of spoke a little bit about alcohol. We were talking about is there, say, prescription medication that's maybe being used a bit more than what it should be? Or
so also knocked that one out because it was too big for my, but I believe there is, but that was, I kind of took that out of my paper. But in the data, again, it's self-reported. We don't know if I'm smoking DMT, can you smoke DMT? I think you can. If I'm on DMT 5 days a week, I'm not going to report on my National Drug Strategy household survey that I'm taking DMT every night. So we've just got to remember that the data, it leaves a lot to be
It's hard to get like an exact
happened.
answer.
Absolutely. But typically, from what I found, marijuana and alcohol are the top for people in older age cohorts. But there's also I've used a lot of information from a great organization called AVIL, and they did a paper a few years ago, and it outlined that there's actually a really big community of people over 50 who are using either opiates or on like prescribed opioid substitution therapy. So there are cohorts out there that are going through this, but again, not necessarily picked up in mainstream data. And in my research, what I found was that it was all alcohol pretty much. So I had one participant out of 6 who told me that there's a guy that tries to keep bringing a bong into the nursing home, which I love. I was like, go him. But they didn't love it very much. So it was, again, not surprising to me, but still it just made me a little bit angry. Like, are people where's the education to tell older people that you can get a script for marijuana now? That guy could be doing it all above board if someone was educating him on that. But no, they're just reefing the bong off him and he's getting another one. Like,
it's some of that, we talked about how it's generational, and the generations that are aging now are from the 60s and 70s and whatnot. Is aged care not necessarily moving with its demographic? Are they still treating them like the greatest generation, where I don't know that it wouldn't have been a problem, but assuming they were a bit straighter, is that part of the issue?
Absolutely, I believe so. So interestingly, nursing homes are typically run on a biomedical model. So, and the ageist idea of society is that you start to get older, you don't have any quality of life left, so you go into a nursing home, people look after you, you've got everything you need there, that's all. There's not a big focus on quality of life. And crazily, so as a future social work practitioner, I know that social work is everywhere. It's in every field you could imagine, but there's hardly any in residential aged care. So it was such a struggle to find participants who were social workers, because I think in data that I found, there was like 15 social workers in residential aged care in Australia. And I mean, this is a career that is advocating for the people they're working with. They are empowering them. They're fully supportive of autonomy and choice. They are completely worried about the psychosocial concerns of a person, yet they are nowhere to be seen in residential aged care facilities. So I think that ageism plays into that. I think that the paternalism of aged care facilities, and you come in here, you go by our rules. It's not really like a home. It's more of like a
institution.
Absolutely. Come in here, you follow our rules. If you drink too much, sorry, but you can't come in.
Crazy.
It's a giant share house. I mean, it's tricky, but we've got to make.
I was going to say a hostel, but like when I lived in hostels, man, that was free flowing with everything.
Maybe that's what we need. It's super interesting.
We say hostels, jokingly, but older people still want to have a good time. They're there with a bunch of people their age, and some of the restrictions I've seen, and admittedly I don't have a lot of experience, but in aged care, I would not. If I'm still kicking at that age, I want to have a beer with my friend, who lives down the hall.
Absolutely. But it's the people I've spoken to, it's such a wild concept to them. When I tell them what I've been focusing on, they're like, wait, in the nursing home? And I'm like, yeah, why not? They're like, wait. Even my GP was like, oh, I never thought about that. And I was like, oh, God, bit of a worry. You're you're a GP and you haven't thought about this.
You're not picking up on like your older patients and stuff like that.
That's how much of a gap this, which scares me. It puts a lot of like, I feel so much pressure because it's kind of undiscovered. Like there was no research in Australia about this.
And aged care needs to get their act together before millennials get there because
have
a time.
Right? I mean, interestingly, and I hope I'm not going too far off topic.
No, it's all good.
We just had the Royal Commission into Aged Care Quality and Safety recently, which was done on the back of all these horrible televised reports of abuse happening in residential aged care facilities, among other things. And so they've put together all of these documents. They've got the final report. And what interests me the most is that they've got, it's all about self-determination and autonomy and choice and dignity and person-centered care. That's exactly what it's all going to look like. But they've got this part where they talk about target populations, and they've got LGBTQIA+, they've got the homeless populations, they've got refugees, but there's nothing in the ginormous report to talk about substance use. So you've got this data telling you this is happening, and they've completely missed it. Everyone seems to have ignored it or glazed over, but these nursing homes are not ready, and they are turning people away that need to access care. And still in this giant report, it hasn't been addressed. So
yeah, that's it, eh? Interesting. The thing is well too, right? Like I've listened to a lot of podcasts recently, and we're seeing that a lot of treatment for a lot of stuff, they're using stuff like LSD, psilocybin, all of this stuff, which has actually been really effective. So, especially when you're talking about your GP not knowing about that stuff, that's interesting as well, because you'd think that people there would be sort of like, oh, yeah, well, there's this new study. Maybe this will help you with this, or this will help you with that. I'm pretty sure they're using, like, say, LSD, and it's probably being used in a different way than, say, hey, here's a tab, go into the field and good luck to you,
Yeah.
It's in a different environment, a whole bunch of things. And it's almost like with, CBD and THC and all of that type of stuff. It's being used differently, and the feeling from it is different as well. You're not necessarily getting high off it. It might be just helping with whatever it is, the ailment you might have. So, especially with how, a lot of research, or, when I mean research, I mean tests with, say, psilocybin and LSD, obviously this is going to be stuff that we're going to be using in the future. So, and look, this is the thing as well. I think a lot of people forget that a lot of drugs that, let's say people use recreationally type of thing, those were originally drugs that were used to be helping people.
Yeah.
Cocaine, for example, dentists used to be using that to numb people's, gums and all of that type of stuff. Speed, I'm pretty sure, used to be given to housewives to help them be more motivated and stuff like that. Ecstasy used to be given to pilots in, I think, the Vietnam War to because, hey, Kev, well, I'm not sure if you know, Erin, but Kev, did you ever watch like Roger Ramjet? Do you remember that card? He
would take his protein pill,
yeah. Erin, did you used to watch that? And remember, like, so what he used to do, so he could have magical powers and all that, off his proton energy pill. You know what I mean?
And is that like Popeye with his spinach? Was that really spinach?
Yeah, well, what the hell was that? I have no idea.
My whole life is suddenly making sense through the lens of the cartoons that I grew up on.
Yeah, totally, man.
I'm aware we're sort of starting to run out of time a bit. I would really like to get to the one question we have around neurodivergence specifically.
Okay, yeah. Where? Let me just. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Flip it over.
So there is research showing a higher rate of substance. We should have used use then. Now that we've had like the the conversation,
let's rename it problematic substance use.
Cool that you picked up on that though. You could have just read it and been like,
hell yeah! I'm
Very
learning,
good.
right? I'm
Yeah.
learning.
we're
So
changing.
I'll read it back out. So there is research showing a higher rate of substance use in neurodivergent individuals. Have you noticed this in your research?
So with my cohort that I'm kind of looking into, definitely not, because I guess I know we've all spoken about our own experiences with substance use and being neurodivergent. This is just 3 of us, but it's 3 for 3. So it's definitely more common. But in people at residential aged care level, can you even imagine how many people might be misdiagnosed or undiagnosed? Can you even
and would not even think that they would even come under this umbrella?
Would not have even entered their doctor's minds, because I guess ADHD on its own was not even put in the DSM until I think the 60s or something, and it was a children's disorder. And I think it was the 90s that it became recognized as an adult disorder. But they're not going to go around the nursing homes and go, we should probably do an assessment.
Let's do an assessment on everyone.
Without armchair diagnosing, did you have any personal experiences with people through your research where you went,
But you were more dealing with the nurses, right?
It was all staff, yeah. So if I do a PhD, which I'm getting poked and prodded at for, it would be to actually do the study with the older people themselves. So check back to me if I end up doing that, and I can tell you.
We'll have Dr. Erin Flint on the show, right?
But I think sorry,
even unrelated to drug use, I'd love to see a study on the prevalence of neurodivergence in that generation, especially in aged care, that just would have, they weren't just not diagnosed, there wasn't a diagnosis, or
definitely.
What does that look like? Yeah,
definitely. I think that's always hard too, because you're looking back over your life, and I would love to know what a diagnostic tool would look like for that, because
and what someone who's neurodivergent has been undiagnosed their entire life and are reaching the end of their life, what does that look like?
I don't know if I could.
Well, you'd have so many. Well, you'd have so many. If you've lived a long life type of thing, you would have had so many processes in place that you've naturally done your whole life type of thing to be able to just live every day with this. Yeah, exactly. And you would have just thought that what I mean,
I'm
that
weird.
was
There's
normal.
something wrong with me.
Or weird, or this is normal.
I honestly, when I read that question, I went, oh, God, I can't even. I have no idea. There must be so many people.
And I think that's good that you've answered that question like that, because I think it just goes to show how there is minimal research, or so much research still to be done. It's like when I'm doing talks in certain parts of education, especially in higher education, and I'm like, look, this is from my experience and a lot of experience that I've heard from other people. The research still doesn't exist, but you could probably be guaranteed that there is a high chance that a lot of this is correct. But I can't give a correct answer on a lot of stuff because the evidence just isn't backing it yet, because it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And I guess people haven't had that drive to go and look into it yet. But now
where do you start? Let's
go do this project, the 3 of us. Let's go.
Well, the thing is, it's so like we could do, I don't know, research on neurodiversity for males who may start using drugs at the age of 13. That's one thing. It's so broad within itself. We could then go, hey, we want to do testing on neurodivergent females who have an addiction to shopping. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that you could
impulse buy.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And it's where do we start? Where does it end? It would never end. It's such a big pool, and that's the hard part of trying to end. And I think this is where it's so important to, for people to be sharing those lived experiences to really, so we can be like, okay, yeah, cool. Because I think as well is that when I hear certain people share things, I can say, oh man, I can relate to that. Or no, I'm not really like that, but yeah, I can relate to that, and vice versa type of thing.
Yeah, which is really, I don't know, I've found that's really important since understanding that I have ADHD and potentially autism, that I can get that relativity to someone else or something else, or it's just always felt weird.
Well, can I say, right, that when I do find out and have a conversation with someone who's neurodivergent and whatever that is, I always feel like I've got that connection. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's, I don't know, once I sort of find out and it's like, oh, wow, I feel like I've got that connection. Like, oh, man, yeah, this person knows exactly. And then also, too, it's been, and this is another funny thing, some of the conversations I have with people offline, I'll tell you, not probably on like the podcast, are some really out there conversations, which maybe in the real world, so not that saying that we don't live in the real world, but
do we?
Yeah. It might be frowned upon, or people like, oh my God, you can't say that. Or like, but then we sort of get and we're like, yeah, man, totally. You know what I mean? It just feels like you can be more open. I don't know. That's just
either that, or we just say some things about, oh man, do you ever experience X? And a neurotypical person looks at you like you've just spoken another language. Then like, what are you talking about? When you identify a neurodivergent person in the room, go, have you ever experienced X? And they're like, yes, instant connection.
Totally.
All right, we might just get one more question in. What are some things? Okay, let's go with this one and then we'll finish it off. What are some things that aged care facilities and government could do better on this topic? I think this will be good to wrap it up, right?
Where do I start? I don't know where to start.
Okay, let's just end it then.
So many. No. So many things, so many. I think before I talk about government and aged care facilities, I think as a society we need to start doing better. I think, and that's why it's really cool that we've had this conversation tonight. I hope that it does get out there to people. I think the conversations that you have and the way that discourse is kind of spread around society, I think that we have to change the conversation about older people, not just, at the end of their lives and ready to go and don't have any quality of life. We need to change that. We need to change the stigma around the use of substances, because when you've got people who use substances, they get stigmatized. When you've got older people, they get stigmatized. When you've got older people who use substances, that's a double banger, and they're getting extra stigmatized and discriminated against. So conversations, I think that from a government level, like I said, the Royal Commission into Aged Care Quality and Safety didn't even bring up substances one time in all of the reports they've done, which blows my mind. So I think something at that level, because facilities don't listen to that sort of stuff anyway. They're going to do what they want to do. But if it's not coming from up there, then how is it going to kind of trickle down? There has to be communication. Like I found that facilities aren't actually giving potential residents any information about, can they use substances? Can they have it in their rooms? So people are pretty much rocking up to move into a nursing home and going, oh, I can't drink here? Like, really? I didn't know that. You've got to have that conversation. I think that we need, what else? I think that the facilities need to just take accountability and go, look, we've got all of these new standards that we've got to work to. We've got new frameworks. The new Aged Care Act is coming. It's all about resident rights and dignity. It's about actually taking stock of what that looks like and not going, oh, you just have the right to a shelter or food. Like you have the right to make your own choices. And look, there's some things around that, like, sorry,
if we just throw a very quick butt in there, provided it's not a problem, obviously, but why should they not have the right to have a bit of fun? Why does that need to be,
there'd be like some kind of like risk management or something around that where, you kind of meet them halfway, because I do get it. Yeah. There is rules, but also we need more social workers in aged care. I'll end on that.
Okay, yeah, nice. I like that. But Erin, thank you so much for coming on. You feel a lot more relaxed now?
So much. It might be the Ativan that I took.
Maybe.
No, you guys were awesome. I'm so honoured.
But you probably see how we're just chilled and it's just a conversation, right? It's
I want to come back next week.
Yeah. Well, we've got a few people in the line, but we could probably get some more people back.
When you're further down the road with the research, absolutely.
I'll do the 100th anniversary episode.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe you would have completed your PhD by then. And that should be cool. But you know what? If anyone wants to contact you or get in touch with you with the great work you're doing, where's the best place to contact you?
I would say LinkedIn is probably the best place.
Yeah,
cool. So just Erin Flint. I think
you're connected with me. Yeah, I think you're connected with me. If you have a look in the LinkedIn title there that we've got up on LinkedIn at the moment, you should be able to connect with Erin there. So yeah, definitely connect with Erin. Sorry, I think someone. Yay. Hang on. I think we got your friend. We so do need more social workers. All right, and thank you, Maria James, for all the great.
Thanks, Maria.
All the great comments today. We love when our guests or listeners are listening through. So thank you so much. Photon John, did you have anything else before we finish up today?
Thank you very much, Erin, for coming on. And it was a little nerve-wracking, but that was a really, really interesting topic. I'm keen to see what you did.
I hope that I did it justice. I hope that I didn't get my 3,000 words of notes out, but you guys helped. You facilitated a great combo. You did.
I tell you won't need all of those notes. It's very good to have that. Yeah, totally.
We want to get topics and information out there, but honestly, we're just trying to normalize conversation.
Like I said, it's like we're sitting at a pub. Just having a drink or something.
Using substances.
Yeah. I was about to say the exact same thing. But yeah, it's just like that type of thing. But Erin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's been awesome chatting with you.
So good.
Totally. And for anyone else who's listening out there, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe, like, and follow to all of our social media platforms, or subscribe to us on our podcasting platforms. My name's Will Wheeler, joined with my main man, Photon John, and this is Neurodivergent Mates. Till next time.
Thank you.